Happy Pride Month, everybody. This is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about d.e.b.s, the 2003 short film and the 2004 theatrical film. So, I now just watched the short film for the first time last night as I was rewatching the theatrical movie on Roku TV channel. Note that I am recording this in March. So, for the longest time, I have been looking for this movie, on streaming for like years. And for the longest time, you had to like pay for it, plus whatever streaming site you have. And I don't do that. So one time they had it for free and I was gonna watch it, but I waited to the end of the month and they took it off. I didn't know that they rotate movies like every month on some streaming sites, the free ones and stuff, right? So then I finally, back in March of this year, found d.e.b.s on Roku channel TV. And like I remember many years ago when this came out, I saw it on TV. However, I only caught like towards the end of the movie when Jordana started lip singing and everything like that. And I remember watching and thinking, this movie's crazy. Like, why is she singing like that for? Like, what kind of movie is this? Because I remember her from like the Fast and the Furious movies. And as I continued to watch it, I started to recognize a bunch of faces in this movie. Like Devin, and at that time I didn't know who Megan Good was, but I remember Devin Onaki and stuff like that. But I was just kind of like, what kind of movie is this and stuff? And so, like, I never saw the short film. And then, so I finally found that on Daily Motion. And so, like, yeah, this movie is nothing like I thought it was going to be. Because, see, what it is, technically it's a spoof of like Charlie's Angels and all these type of spy thriller type stuff like James Bond. It's kind of like the Austin Powers movie. However, Austin Powers is about 95% spy and 5% romance. And this movie is 95% romance and 5% spy stuff. And so I wasn't expecting to watch a romance movie and stuff. I thought I was gonna watch like a goofy spoof of like a spy thriller and stuff. And then to add on to that, I had no idea that the romance movie was actually going to be a lesbian romance movie. This was very different and very bold back in 2004 because you just didn't see stuff like that. You didn't see a movie geared to like the LGBT and especially that of lesbians. Normally, if you get like an LGBT type movie, normally it's like a man in drag, but it's always like, not a real drag queen. It's just your typical male actor playing a female role for like whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? Like that movie with Wesley Snipes and John Leguizamo. What's it? Something Woo or Foo or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. And then there's Mrs. Doubtfire and stuff like that. So you always had like those type of movies like in the 90s that were never played by the LGBT. And then, like, if you were to get a movie with the LGBT, it normally would be a movie about, like, gay men and stuff. But it would never be, like, in a theatrical type movie. It'd be more like an independent type movie. I remember one time when I was in college, this one girl I used to be friends with, and she was straight, but she loved gay men to, like, death. And when I looked at her boyfriend, I'm just kind of like, are you sure he's not gay or anything? He was probably bi or whatever. But she was like obsessed with gay men. That's one of the reasons why we had a falling out, because I'm straight and she just like doesn't really like hanging around straight guys and stuff. Plus she's so rude and nasty. I couldn't stand her. But I remember back when we were friends and stuff, I was on the internet And I saw a trailer called Not Another Gay Movie, which is like, a spin on Not Another Teen Movie. And so I showed it to her and she just fell like so in love with like the trailer. So normally if you would see a movie with the LGBT, it would normally revolve around like gay men. But it's very rare to have like, a movie about like a lesbian. Normally, if you do, then the rest of the movie is it only has them in there for like a small bit. Like I remember like there's this one like, stripper movie I talked about last year. That's on Tubi right now. I forget the name of it, but it's on my channel somewhere. And like, it talks about the lives of all these people, and then there's like a tiny, teeny, tiny lesbian subplot. And then like, I remember there was this one movie. I cannot remember the name of this movie to save my life. I remember I was somewhere with my mom or something like that, and then she had an appointment somewhere, and I'm in like the waiting lounge, and there was the movie on the television. I don't even remember what the movie's about, but it's a bunch of women, and there's this one woman who's younger, in her 20s, and she's straight, but she wants to be like a lesbian. And her friends all like, you can't be a lesbian because every time you kiss a girl, you throw up and everything. And she's all like, but I'm trying to like not throw up. And I don't remember what the name of that movie is. And so, yeah, every time she kept trying to do like a girl, boom, she would like throw up and everything. God, what was the name of that movie? I have been looking and looking and looking, and I can't find no description of it. So normally if you have like a movie with like a lesbian in it back in the day, it will always be like a teeny tiny little subplot and everything. And normally like you'll get more LGBT somewhat representation on television, especially nowadays and stuff. But even back then, it was always still gay men, and it'll be like teeny tiny. And this is because, of course, society hates the LGBT, and so they treat them completely nasty and everything. And this is why you don't see too much LGBT content in like the world or country or television or movies and stuff like that now, because in the past 5, 10 years there was more diversity and you saw more LGBT representation, but now because everything is changing once again, it has now become demonized once again, after at one point it was starting to be praised and stuff. Because I remember, because I said this before, in the late 90s and early 2000s, this is when people started to accept the LGBT community. It was a slow process, and it happened mostly because of straight women. Straight women trick the minds of straight men by having them put like girly products in their hair, making them dress like, in a more color pink, wearing like pants with like flip-flops and no socks. Look, don't ask me why, but that just used to be a thing back then. And because of that one show, see, this is the thing, you know me, I do not use the Q word to describe the LGBT community. Why? Because back in my day of growing up, it was considered a slur. I don't do slurs. This is why I don't say the N word, being a black guy and everything. And so, like, I know the word has been taken back, like the Q word, and it's more positivity than what it used to be back in the day. But because of like, growing up in a time when it was a slur, I just don't use that word. So I'll say Q eyes for the straight guy. And so, like, because of that show, all those women started having their guys started watching it. And then the guys started to realize, and I'm telling you this truth, this is for real. Like, back in, like, the late 90s, guys, like, straight guys started watching it. And they started, like, grooming themselves a lot more, like, with products and stuff like that. And then they started to realize, oh, crap. What did they do to me and everything? And they started to realize that, and then they started to realize, okay, maybe we shouldn't be hating on it so much because these people aren't as like, how they thought they were and everything. Honest to God, like I remember that like back in high school and stuff, and even South Park like parodied it and everything because more guys started to be accepting of that lifestyle, but didn't realize what they was transitioning into when they started wearing clothes like that and then their hair like that, and also you got to remember lesbian porn. That also helped contribute to a lot of straight people, like accepting the LGBT. Okay, this is going on for 10 minutes. Okay, let me get back into the movie. So, like, you just didn't see like a lesbian type movie like back in the day or really period and everything. And for the most part, and like I said before, you go into this movie thinking you're gonna watch like a spy parody, but it's actually all the movie revolves around these two women wanting to date, but they can't because one's a villain and one's a hero and everything. And it causes complications in both their jobs. And so the person who actually created this in the short is Angela Robinson. Now she's the creator, not the actress. There's an actress by that name, and they both have black in them. But this is the one who's like a writer and stuff like this. She's gone on to do a bit more in movies, but mostly more in TV shows, and she created the L Word. And so when she was in college, she used to like, draw comics of like the Debs and everything, right? And then they gave her like, how much money did they give her for like a grant? I think they gave her like $20,000 for like a grant. And it's this organization called Power Up that gave it to her to make like an 11-minute short film. The short film's about 8 minutes or so. The short film is actually really hilarious. It feels more like a spy spoof parody than the actual movie. There's more awkward jokes in it and everything. Like, the one character, I think her name might be Jill. Or something like that. I can't remember her name, but she's all like, "Is that my sweater?" Like they're on a mission, they're sneaking around, and she's just like, "Is that my sweater?" And then they keep going back and forth, talking about, "No, it's not yours," and she's like, "Well, I think it's my sweater," and it was just like the most awkward thing ever. And it looks very early 2000s. When you watch the short, it feels like an early 2000s WB television show with the clothes and the hair and the music. Early 2000s fashion was somewhat more like flashy, colorful, preppy look. Like it's preppy, but in a posh kind of way, and more like a leathery, sometimes very colorful kind of way. It's kind of hard to explain, but it literally looks like candy to me. Like if you had like a bunch of candy with different colors, that's how fashion was back then. It was shiny, it was bright, it was kind of like preppy a little bit. It was tight, you know what I'm saying? Like not tight as in, wow, that's tight. I mean tight to your body forming kind of tight, you know what I'm saying? It just had like a different vibe to it. You always felt like just go back and watch an old WB show from like the early 2000s, like Smallville or like I don't know, something OC or whatever it's called. Like, you'll get what I'm talking about when the fashion of the early 2000s and stuff. And so she created this short. And the short is basically, it's about like, well, the short and the movie are about like a secret organization named d.e.b.s. They sneak in like, questions in your SATs. And if you pass those certain type of questions, then the females and the female only goes on to be d.e.b.s, which is also short for debutante, but it stands for discipline, energy, beauty, and strength. And so they're called d.e.b.s and everything. And so basically, they recruit these young teenage girls to be like spies, and they send them all over the world to stop like spy stuff, similar to that of James Bond or Secret Agent Man, which was a short-lived UPN show. And the Debs dress in like these schoolgirl outfits and like stuff like that. And there are guys technically in the organization, but they're more like security and stuff like that. So in the short, they get their like mission from like headquarters and everything, and they go on the mission. One of their members is kidnapped, and as they're fighting like the bad guys and everything, there's a huge twist in like the short that I did not see coming, but I should have because um, of the movie I saw. But see, they recast the theatrical movie, so I didn't know that these characters in the shorts are the same characters in the actual movie. And so the villain, Lucy Diamond and everything, she just starts making out with one of the Debs she kidnapped because apparently they've been having this relation going on for like a really long time, and they have to keep it hidden and everything. And so before she can get caught, she has to like knock out her lover, run away, and then the rest of the Debs like rescue the fallen girl and everything. And so it was a twist that like you just don't see coming at all because she's tied up. You think the bad people are gonna hurt her, and then all of a sudden they just start like making out. Now in the movie, it's completely different. See, in the short, like I said before, they had a bunch of like different actresses playing these roles and everything, right? And so they had Alexandria Birkenridge play that of Sarah. She is the one who I think gets like kidnapped and like no. Sarah Foster. No, wait. I'm getting my names messed up. Okay, Alexandria Birkenridge, she plays Amy. Amy is like the one who has relations with like Lucy Diamond. Sarah Foster is the one who played her in a theatrical movie. Okay. And so you have Tammy Lynn Michaels. Oh, by the way, Alexandria, I think she's the niece of disgraced actor Michael Weatherly or something like that. He's from Dark Angel. He's from Bull. He's the one who got Me Too'd by what's her name? Eliza Dushku. Cause he kept like filling up her knee and flirting with her, and he's disgusting. He's disgusting. And so like you have Tammy Lynn Michaels, who I remember from the show Popular, and she plays Max, and she's the leader. And so, like, you have Shanti or Shanti, one of those, Lowry. And she plays Dominique. Now, she's black and she's French, and all she does is smoke. And so then you have, okay, I got that mixed up. It's not Jill who was talking about the sweater. Jill Ritchie is the actress, but she plays Janet. And she is the only one to cross over into the theatrical movie. For some other reason, they just recast everybody, and I'm not sure why. And then you have like Claire Kramer, who's best known for playing that god demon lady from Buffy, and she plays Lucy Diamond and stuff. And so like, but then they recast everybody. And so when they recast them, they also changed the ethnicity of one and changed the personality of like another. So Sarah Foster, she now plays Amy, the one who like, falls for like Lucy and stuff. You now have Megan Good play Max, and they race bent the character. And because now, Megan Good is black. Then you have Devin Anaki, who's Asian, play Dominic. And her character is French and she smokes. And so they had to race bend her character. And then, of course, Jill still plays Janet. But now Jordana Brewster, who I remember from the Fast and Furious movies, plays Lucy Diamond. And so, like, Amy has an ex-boyfriend named Bobby. and Lucy has like a henchman named Scud. Also added to the cast, you have Holland Taylor, who plays Miss Petrie, and may he rest in peace, Michael Clark Duncan, who plays Mr. Phibbs. And you also have that of Jessica, and I can't say her last name, Kav, Kav, Phil or something like that. She plays like a Russian like mobster type person, and she has a small role. I remember her from a couple of movies. So not only am I shocked that this movie is like a lesbian romance movie, but I'm also shocked they made the black girl like the leader of like the group and everything, the one in charge. Like this was like really shocking because this is back in 2004, and you just didn't see stuff like that. You wouldn't see no black girl be the leader of a mostly predominantly white group and everything. And there are tons of d.e.b.s. There are hundreds of thousands of them, right? And so, but you only get to see like these group. And so, and I will say, I'm glad they added made the black girl the leader, and I'm glad they added an Asian character because there was none in the short. However, it's odd. This movie is progressive in one aspect, but then it's not in another. See, because the movie revolves around that of Lucy and Amy, you don't really get to know the other girls all that much. Like Janet is probably like the third biggest supporting character, but she's just like the dumb girl who was best friends with like Amy. And the only thing we know about her is that she wants to get a promotion. She wants her stripes. But then she also ends up falling for like the hench guy named Scud. But when it comes to that of Dominic and that of Max, you don't really know nothing about them. You don't know their desires really or anything like that. And they're kind of barely in the movie. When it comes to Dominic, all she literally does is say sassy stuff, which is funny, and she's a chain smoker. She smokes constantly throughout the entire movie. And also, she's French and everything. In the beginning of the movie, you see her with like a black dude in bed who she spent the night with. But when they go to like their prom banquet type thing, she's with like now a white dude and everything. And so that's literally the only thing you know about her. And when it comes to Max, the only thing you know about her is she is the leader. And when it's found out that Amy is messing around with the villain, she devises a way so everybody else in Deb's organization won't find out since they're the only ones who know about it. She says, why not just make her like Deb of the Year and talking about like how good she was and how she caught like Lucy and how she didn't die, because the thing about Lucy is that every person who's fought Lucy has died, you know what I'm saying? But she's the only one survived, but she never fought her. And so she made up this whole ruse to make like Amy feels like so important and everything to help her out, but she doesn't help herself out. And then she lets Amy go at the end of the movie so she can be with like Lucy. So it's kind of like, okay, not only did you lie, but you let the villain go and one of your teammates turned traitor. And so it's kind of like, what kind of good leader is she? You know what I'm saying? So it's progressive in one way with like the lesbian storyline and the subtext towards the end of the messaging and everything, because you have to pay really close attention when Amy's giving a speech, because she's not really talking about what you think she's talking about. She's actually talking about coming to terms with becoming a lesbian and not wanting to conform to that of like the norm and everything and be who everybody else wants her to be and stuff. So it's a really cool message, but you have to get the hidden message of it and stuff. But other than that, it's like the black and the Asian character do absolutely nothing in the movie. And that bugs me. This is why woke culture has become what it is in Hollywood, because you would have, say, like a black or Asian character in a predominantly white movie. You'll give them like a really cool title and everything or position, but then you don't do nothing with them. And that's frustrating and stuff like that. And so, like, the movie basically is completely different from that of the short. And so, when it comes to the movie, how exactly did it fare back in 2004? Well, it fared about the way you would assume it would. It flopped. See, it had a budget of about, I think it was it like 3.5 million or something like that, or 30 million or something like that. But it only made about $97,000 and stuff. And so it flopped hard at the box office, and it had a mixed reception. People thought they was going in for like a spy thriller type parody, but it turned out to be a lesbian romance movie. But here's the thing, right? It now has a cult following and everything. The LGBT community love this movie and stuff. And they really caused this movie to like risen from like the grave and everything. Even to the point that where like over 20 years later, every once in a while it's still shown in like the theaters and stuff. But oddly enough, it's not on every like streaming channel and stuff. You have to pay additional money. So when Roku TV channel, where it's called, had it for free, I was really, really shocked. But it's really good that, this movie that was considered a box office bomb has now become a cult classic and stuff. And it's funny how movies do that over like the span of 20 or 40 years. There's been a couple of movies I talked about on here that like bombed, but then they became cult classics many years like later, like Detroit Rock City. It bombed, but it has like a cult following and everything. And so the movie, which is different from the short, like I said before, the movie is about like still with the whole like SAT thing and the hidden questions and the girls going to be Debs, and it's a spoof of basically James Bond and like Charlie's Angels. So you have Mr. Phibbs who talks them on like a hologram and everything, and also Mrs. Petrie who's like the head of the organization. Miss Petrie's kind of like dim-witted and everything. Mr. Phibbs is kind of like very stern, and so like the girls that go like on a mission and this and that. Their mission is to like capture Lucy Diamond. She's this nefarious, like not henchwoman, but like villainess and everything, who always wants to destroy this and steal that and steal a bunch of money and stuff like that. Lucy Diamond leaves the calling card of little diamonds on the floor. That's how she's there and stuff. And so she's supposed to be the most dangerous villain in the entire world. However, I never got that impression. Jordana Brewster is a really good actress, but she's better when she's in more like a drama or a thriller. Here, I wasn't really feeling her comedy, and she can play a good bad person because she did it in The Faculty. But here, I just don't get the impression that she's like this really ruthless, murdering type person. She's really skinny. She has no muscle on her. And she doesn't act mean throughout the entire movie. She's actually very friendly and very nice throughout the entire movie. I never get the impression she's like mean or anything. So I was not feeling that. But like her whole thing is that Scud's gonna set her up on a blind date because her last relationship just didn't do well. And she doesn't like blind dates. And so this is when she meets like the Russian lady, and it's just not working out. Now, because people know where her location at because they've been spying on her, the d.e.b.s set up their operation by dangling on ropes on the ceiling of the restaurant in which Lucy is at. And it's really weird because you got all these people at like the dinner table, and you just look up and there's all these women hanging on a rope like Spider-Man and everything. And it's like, how do people not see them? And then the FBI is there. Then the security is there. Well, In the movie, when it comes to that of Amy's character, Amy's main motivation is to get into like a better college and this and that. But she also has like an ex-boyfriend who will not leave her alone named Bobby. He misses her, he still loves her, but for whatever reason, things just did not work out for them. But I think he wants like his bracelet back that he gave her, something like that. Now, when it comes to this movie, it is funny, but it's not as funny as the short. The movie is kind of awkward in the sense that, okay, is this supposed to be funny? Because I'm not sure it is. Okay, that's funny, and you start laughing, but I don't find myself laughing throughout the entire movie, only certain plots of it. And I feel like this movie needed a stronger script. Like, it needed more of that spy type stuff because the movie really doesn't do that much spy espionage type stuff. And so, why make them a spy organization if, like, you're not gonna deliver on the spy stuff? It's only like a teeny tiny bit. And I need it more because, I like that type of stuff. And also because that's what it applied. I think if they would have had more spy type stuff blended in with the romance stuff, it would have done better. Like the Austin Powers movie. The Austin Powers movie had the spy stuff, the humor stuff, and then it had the romance stuff on the side. And their villain, although he was goofy, he always wanted to like destroy the world and stuff like that. And so, like, I feel like the script need to be polished a bit more. It need to be stronger in some aspects. I need to know why Amy and Bobby don't get along and why they broke up. Because you really don't get the impression. I don't even think they explain really why they broke up, and you're not really sure why and stuff like that. You also don't get the hint that like Amy is a lesbian, which is supposed to be like the point. I don't know if she's a lesbian. I don't know if she's bi. I don't even know if she's straight to begin with, but then later turns into a lesbian because the movie really doesn't explain that too well. So it doesn't have that huge twist film that the short had. Because in the short, you just assume Amy's just a regular, like, straight person. And then all of a sudden, when she starts making out and with, like, the villain, talking about how much in love they are, then it's kind of like, oh, they've been in a relationship this entire time. And that's what's hilarious about it. Here is completely different. There is no twist like that. And so, as they're bickering over, like, the necklace, it falls down. Lucy sees it, and then, a shootout and stuff like that. And so, when Amy goes to, like, chase after Lucy, they point their guns at each other, but they don't fight. Why? Because Lucy likes what she sees and everything. And but also because Amy tells her she's writing a paper about her, like an essay paper, and Amy's kind of like acting like, oh, you're like my number one. I'm like, you're my like, well, I'm your number one fan. I'm writing like this paper about you. Like that's how she's kind of acting. You know what I'm saying? And so Lucy likes that. She likes the idea of somebody writing a paper about her, how like important she is, and like all the other stuff. So it causes Lucy to like her. But then when the rest of the d.e.b.s show up, Lucy hightails it on out of there. And they're kind of shocked. They're like, Amy, how are you still alive? Like you literally, like they assume she fought like Lucy, but never did and everything. And so, because of this, it causes Mrs. Petrie to basically come in as a big boss and want to take like a bunch of pictures, be like, hey, look, I'm here with the hero who did the impossible and everything. But when it comes to Lucy, Lucy can't stop thinking about Amy. And that's literally all she thinks about for the rest of the movie. And so she wants Amy. She sneaks into the d.e.b. headquarters, which is odd because it's a force field, but she's able to like penetrate it somehow. So then, like, she takes Amy with her, but then Janet is outside, and it's funny because like first Amy has like a crossbow or a nail gun or something like that. But then Lucy gets it. And so, like, when they're outside and Janet can see that Lucy's trying to take, like, Amy away, she tries to stop it only to get shot by, like, the crossbow, but it gets, like, her sweater. So they brought in that sweater reference just completely different. And I like the sweater reference better in the short. And so, like, because Janet saw everything, they take her with them. And so they go back to their headquarters, which is just like a seedy little bar where a lot of villainous, like, young people hang out with and stuff. And so from there on, you have basically Lucy seducing, like, Amy, and then you have Scud and Janet just hanging out, having a good time playing foosball. And it's just kind of like, why is Janet liking Scud for? I know she's a dumb one and everything, but why is she falling for him? And then when it comes to that of Lucy and Amy, you constantly see Amy telling, like, Lucy, like, to back off and blah, blah, blah. I'm not like that. But Lucy keeps going in. Now, like I said before, it's praised by the LGBT community, but one thing I find odd is that nobody is complaining about the Lucy character being what's known as a predatory lesbian. See, that's a phrase that came up a couple of years ago, and it's something the LGBT community does not like, because they hate when they see a lesbian in a television show or a movie constantly going after, like, a straight girl and constantly trying to, like, change her. If you ever watched the Netflix show Insatiable, you will know exactly what I'm talking about, because Debbie Ryan's best friend character is a lesbian who's constantly hitting on her and trying to get with her. Same thing with that Fox show, Scream Queens and everything. Like, the one lesbian person kept being called, like, a predatory lesbian, but she wasn't a predatory. It's just what Chanel kept calling her. And so the LGBT community, from what I've heard, really hates when lesbians are portrayed like this, when they're constantly pursuing and constantly hitting on a woman who's, like, straight. Similar to when a straight man hits on a straight woman and the woman's not interested. And like I said before, in this movie, you never get the impression that Amy is, like, part of the LGBT community. So I don't know if, like, she was secretly a lesbian, if she's secretly bisexual, or if she's just straight and later turned. Because yes, there are some people who are straight and literally turn. Even some people in the LGBT community have said that some people do that, while others say that no, you're born that way. But not everybody's born that way. Some people just change. I used to love vanilla ice cream back when I was little. Now I like cookie and cream, and now I like banana pudding ice cream and stuff like that. People change and stuff like that. And so basically all they do is just, like, talk and everything. And Amy really likes that, because towards the end of the movie, she literally says she had, like, the best time of her life, and all she did was just, like, talk to Lucy and everything. And that what caused her to, like Lucy back. But the whole romance between Lucy and Amy happened so quickly, because throughout the entire movie, I kept asking myself, why does Amy like Lucy for? Like, I said before, like, I never got the impression she liked girls. And not only that, but what did Lucy do to, like, persuade her? You know what I'm saying? Because at one point, Lucy tries to kiss her, but gets, like, somebody comes in and it, like, stops it. And one of the d.e.b.s is all like, oh my God, she almost kissed you and blah, blah, blah. And I think it was Janet, because Janet was all like, wait a minute, you're hold up, because, you dated Bobby and everything. Now, in this short, there's an actual love scene. You don't technically see where the fingers are going, but you know where the fingers are going. And there's a lot of moaning. Here in the movie, it's not like that, which is odd. You would assume a movie would have a sex scene and not a short. But anyway, so once, like, it's discovered about the whole, like, Lucy and Amy thing, this is when the d.e.b.s, like Max and Mrs. Petrie, come up with a lie about, like, the whole Lucy and Max thing. They tell her, make sure that they had, like, literally Amy is getting, like, interrogated and talking about, you have to promise you'll never see Lucy again and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And she doesn't want to do that. And so there's supposed to be like this prom type like banquet and everything like that. And so Amy's supposed to now give a speech about like, how like, she fought like Lucy and all this other stuff. Now, ironically, they do kind of conversate throughout the movie. Like they somehow they sneak and do it. I forget how. But, Amy literally tells her, I can't be with you. You're a villain. I'm a hero, and blah, blah. So this causes Lucy to want to turn good. So there's like a huge montage of like Lucy singing and she's giving back like the money she stole. She promises she's not going to blow up this country and everything or this state. Because she has like an old fashioned, like giant laser gun, very 1940s looking, that can like shoot up into the sky and destroy like a country or something like that. And so so she's literally reforming, and there's all these newspaper articles of her exposing Amy and everything, talking about how like, she's doing this for true love and blah 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 blah. I think she just exposes Amy, I'm not sure. But basically, she's turning over a new leaf and everything. But this is not making Amy come to her arms. So she gets pissed and she's gonna break into like the banquet and just confess her love to that of Amy. So once like the Debs find out that Lucy's inside, they go looking for her. But like it's weird. It's an organization of like spies, but they're all terrified of Lucy. When there's somebody's all like, Lucy's in the building, they scatter, they scream, they holler, they run. I'm like, y'all are supposed to be the most elite people in like the world and everything. But anyway, so like I said before, Amy gives this big speech. And it's a really, you have to listen to the hidden message and everything. Because basically it's like, talking about how she's not gonna do what everybody else wants. She's gonna be the person she wants to be and blah, 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 blah. And like, and she literally just like tells, like, I forget, she either tells the entire room or she tells Max and Dominique, like, she had the best conversation of her life being with Lucy, and it was the best time she's ever had and everything. And that's just what she wants and everything. And so, as like, Max and Dominique, they just let like, Lucy and Amy go and they get to live their lives. And then, so at the end, for whatever reason, Janet gets like her promotion, and then she later starts to date Scud, which I still don't understand why she likes him for and everything. And then we see like Lucy and Amy just drive off in the moonlight, in like a car, and the movie just like ends like that and stuff. As the rest of the Debs are looking for like Lucy because Max sent them on like a false trail and everything. But Debs is one of those projects that would do better as a streaming show. That way you can really map stuff out. You can have all the spy, espionage stuff, and you can have the secret romance stuff to where it's later exposed and then they try to hide it. And then, the person tries to contemplate which path they're going to go on. Would have been so much better if it was like, they were rebooted into like a streaming type thing. So this was a cute, fun, little charming movie that's pretty funny and everything. However, I just kind of wish that the plot in the script could have been a lot stronger. I would love to have seen more spy espionage type stuff. And not just hokey spy espionage type stuff. I'm not throwing my camera. Like, give me a reason why these Debs supposed to be like the best of like the best. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a parody coming off of like that. What was it? 2001 Charlie's Angels movie. Charlie's Angels was an awesome movie and stuff like that. The Austin Powers movies were really good, but that's because they blended in both a romance and like the spy stuff. And, I wish they would have, like, explained a little bit more as to why Amy liked Lucy so much and not explain it towards the end of the movie. Because give me a hint. Like, give me a hint if she's, like, into, like, I would have liked it more if they would have hinted that Amy does like girls, but she has to keep that part hidden from her. And that she hates keeping that part hidden in her life. You know what I'm saying? And that Lucy was the one who like brought it out. Similar to Emily and Maya from Pretty Little Liars. And like I would have liked to see more character development with Max and like Dominique and explain why Janet likes Scud for. That's never explained. Like he's literally there, she's there, and they just hang out and then all of a sudden they like each other. I'm like, I don't get that. So I just wish, like in some aspects, the movie had like stronger writing, like you know what I'm saying, to make me understand why. Because when you go into this movie and you watch it, you just constantly scratch your head and you're wondering why is this, why is that, you know what I'm saying? But other than that, I do think this is a big achievement for like the LGBT community when it comes to that like of a lesbian movie. Because how often do you see that, you know what I'm saying? Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.